Right, so now we'll be looking at some filing. Here we are. I'm not quite sure again with the light, and this is really quite a small piece of work. You may not notice, I'll try and lift it up to the camera, but where I've been carving, can you see there's little flat spots where the wood's been just chipped out? Well, now the next step is really to try and remove those and to get a smooth surface. So I'd start off with a reasonably large file. I mentioned this one before as being quite aggressive, but it's really less aggressive than some of the bigger ones when I'm doing some really big work, and certainly less aggressive than those rasps. But the areas I want to work at, I'm just going to be gently wiping the file backwards and forwards across the area, looking to take out the troughs and valleys and ridges that have been left by the knives and the chisels. Just a couple of words on filing techniques. You'll notice that I'm really trying to stroke forward all the time. That's almost instinctive when I'm trying to follow a grain. Rather difficult on this piece of wood, as I've said. Another technique which is easier to demonstrate with the big file is a rocking motion. When you want to try and make a rounded surface with a flat tool, inevitably when you do that, that's flattened down a piece of wood. It makes it flat. It mirrors this. So what you've got to try and do is make those flat spots as small as possible. And one of the instinctive things that you do when you start filing, I'll keep my finger out of the way so you can hear, is you go, oh yes, that's going to be a round. So you follow it round like this, and you think, oh yes, that's going to work. But then you notice that you've got a really big flat spot. But I was at a fair and I was doing some carving, and somebody came up and said, you know, how you can get rid of that is, he said, I'm a body filler. He said, I work on repairing cars, and when you put body filler into a dent or something of that nature, and you then want to make it rounded to keep it in line with the metal, one of the techniques they learn is to rock the file. Really the opposite to what you would think. You think, oh, I'm going around that way. Just move that around a little bit. So I really need to follow it round. No, quite the opposite. You just rock it up. And what you're doing is you're still actually putting little flat spots there, but you are leaving much finer flat spots, and it then starts to give you the rounded surface that you want. So it's a up, sort of that sort of motion rather than that sort of motion. So then the same technique with the finer files, but as you can see, the teeth, the gnarls in there has picked up quite a lot of the wood, because I've obviously been working on this before we recorded. So I just brush it out, try and keep it as clean as possible. Get it all out, and a good tap always helps. That just makes the file work more efficiently. And I'm going to be using the same technique of rocking upwards. Now, lots of different files. That's a flat. Guess what? That's a round file. That's a triangle with different faces on, but it gives you a sharp edge. So if you wanted, can you remember we made that little trench there? If you want to just clean up something, you can just drop that edge into the V, and obviously it's cleaning up both sides of the valley. That's a half round. That was the same as the really big file. And that's a quadrant, which is the same as the triangle, except this one has very distinctively different cutting surfaces on it. And we're looking at the jeweler's files. Now the jeweler's files are exactly the same, except they've got that diamond. Being diamond, it does cut pretty well. Now my wife will say, You know, people must be really bored when you get to this stage. And I say yes because it's just hours of, and I do mean hours, of filing and working at the finish to get the effects you want. I'll work at this for a bit, and then when I get to an area where I think we can look at some surface sanding, we'll come back and have a look at that. Go on, say it, Nerdle. Cut. Yes, all right then, we'll do just that.